All right, here we go. Today is the first day where we are talking about Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick. So why this book? I'll start with the author, Ethan Mollick. He is a professor of management at Wharton, specializing in entrepreneurship and innovation, and he has a newsletter called One Useful Thing, where he focuses on talking about AI. What attracted me to this book specifically is that it is thought-provoking, it is practical like any book on AI should be, but I also liked how grounded it is. When speaking about AI, one of the most annoying things, I think, is that people love to just extrapolate way out. And they love to make claims about AGI and how we're all going to be doomed, and they talk about Terminator scenarios or whatever. And it is exciting to do that, but it's very theoretical, and I think it distracts away from the present moment where AI is today. From the reviews and the description of the book, I think this actually strikes a nice balance from what I can tell. So that was why I picked this book specifically. Now, if we have a look at the structure of the book, it's in two parts. Part one seems to be more about describing the nature of artificial intelligence, talks about a sort of alien intelligence. And then part two seems to be more practical, explaining how someone might use AI in different roles. We'll see if I'm right about that, though. I'll give a brief summary of the intro, and then we'll talk a little bit about what the expectations for this book are. The basic summary, Ethan Mollick says that the cost of getting to know AI is 3 sleepless nights. What does that mean? He's motivating this book by sharing this anecdote where he and his team at Wharton spent several months creating simulations to train business skills like negotiation. And then ChatGPT comes out, and he wrote a 1-paragraph prompt and was able to get 80% of the result that he got from this months of work. He got 80% of that with 1 paragraph in ChatGPT. And I think it's safe to say that anyone in that position might have a few sleepless nights. In his intro, he also describes AI as a general-purpose technology, rare new technologies that apply across many fields. And his point here is that the internet was one of these technologies that connected so many people, but it took at least 3 decades for the internet to become as ubiquitous as it is today. And that was because there were a lot of barriers to adoption. You needed computers to be cheaper, you needed the infrastructure to be built out. But AI has not been like that. AI, LLMs were only invented within the last decade, and now pretty much everyone you meet has used it at least once, have probably used several. And then he kind of ends talking about how AI is a different beast altogether. We like to kind of think of it as human, but it's a different kind of intelligence. He calls it the alien in the room, which I thought was a nice description. And he points out how strange it is that this AI is able to do things way beyond what most humans can do. The same AI is able to pass the bar exam and the neurosurgery qualifying test, but that's not something any of its programmers could do, and that seems like he's setting up for part 1 of the book there. Now, before we start reading further into this book, I decided I should gather my thoughts about AI. I don't think anyone really can say that they're a true expert on AI. Even in the intro, he says that there's a lot of people who have opinions, but no one has the whole picture. And I spent some time and I thought about AI as I've experienced it, and I came up with 5 questions that I think summarize my thoughts on AI pretty well. And I decided that what we're going to do is that after reading the whole book, I'm going to revisit these 5 questions. I'm going to see what answers we got and what answers are still outstanding. I don't have any expectation about how these are going to be answered exactly, but we'll revisit them at the end. My first question is, practically, how can I use AI better? One of my favorite descriptions of AI when it first got popular came from Reid Hoffman, the guy behind LinkedIn, among many other things. He called it a co-pilot for every profession. I use this AI cut thing inside of InShot that does kind of the first pass of my edit for these videos. I definitely use AI to write code. That includes GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT. I've used it to explain new concepts to myself if there's something I'm unfamiliar with. And I'm curious if this book can show me something that I can use AI for that I wasn't aware of. Like, is there a problem that I have where there's an AI solution that I didn't know exist? That's something I'm looking for, and it looks like maybe that'll be in part 2. The second big question I have is, how do you value the work of AI? And adding on to that, how do you value work that is supplemented by AI? So for example, I really like this YouTube channel called Rise to the Equation. It's run by a teacher named Art, and what he does is he plays the games from New York Times. So that includes Wordle, Strands, and Connections. And if we just think about Connections, because that's my favorite one, that is a game that AI can play. It's an exercise I've done a few times where you can actually just plug in the whole puzzle and just describe the problem. And usually after one or two attempts, the AI can figure it out. You might have to give it some hints. But for some reason, I don't really care to watch an AI do puzzles. For some reason, it's really compelling to me to watch Art do them, because maybe it's something about the struggle or seeing how he thinks about the problem. I don't feel that same personal interest when I plug it into ChatGPT. I will say though, one thing I found very interesting in creating the clip for this video is that ChatGPT felt the need to tell me that it was pondering cheese. And yeah, who hasn't pondered cheese at least once in their life? So that was pretty interesting. And then along this line of how we value work done by AI, if we actually take a look at the author's newsletter, in the description, you can see that he points out that he doesn't use AI to write it. And I thought, why would he bother to say that? Why does it matter? Would it change your mind about the newsletter if he did use AI? I don't know. And of course, as you think about the value of AI, you have to wonder, is it worth the cost in the form of climate change? Because we know AI can be very expensive in terms of its carbon footprint. My third question is, how does AI change the truth? It used to be that you had to be careful with photographic evidence because it could be photoshopped or doctored. But if you look at some of the photos that AI has produced, it's just incredible to see how realistic it can make certain things. And it makes you start to wonder how much you can trust photographic evidence. And along the lines of changing the truth, AI is also known to hallucinate. And for example, if you use Google Gemini, it will even give you the option to Google responses from Gemini so that you can fact check what it says. If the training data that's used for AI contains misinformation and the model consumes it and then gives it to a user, at what point do we think about the responsibility for that bad data? My fourth big question is, how is AI going to change us? Because if AI can do a job, is there still value in the human learning how to do that? For example, right now, I'm very proud to say that I have a 122-day streak on Duolingo. But if AI can translate in real time, am I wasting my time in learning another language? Are we going to start losing skills like programming, other languages, art, if AI is starting to take those over? And what new skills are we going to embrace as part of that transition? One of the things I'm most worried about with regards to how AI is going to change us, is there a future where I can trust an AI to write emails for me with absolutely no intervention on my part? If I'm at that stage personally, would I reasonably expect that someone else is using AI to write their emails to me? It's like that saying where you say, I'll have my people call your people, but instead it'll be, I'll have my AI call your AI. And I wonder if that's a future that we're going to really see. And it's something to think about with regards to social media apps. The whole idea of social media apps is they would help people connect, but now they are often blamed for being the cause of the loneliness epidemic. We don't really know what the side effects of some of these new technologies are. And then finally, we know AI isn't human intelligence, but the question is, what kind of intelligence is it? He mentions how the AI can do things that its programmers don't know how to do. But at the same time, we know that it struggles with some really basic things. Like famously, it doesn't know how to count the number of R's in the word strawberry. When you see that massive difference in ability, where on some things it's way better and on others it's way worse than a human, it makes you wonder what kind of intelligence you're dealing with. When a person does something, a person can always explain their steps, but an AI is a black box. If you ask it to explain its steps, it's always kind of retroactively looking at the text it previously generated and it's not actually giving you a proper reasoning. Those are my 5 big questions about AI. We'll see over the next couple weeks if I get answers to my questions. I hope we do. If you have any questions about AI, put them in the comments, and let's see in a few weeks if they get answered. I'm very excited to start this new book, and I hope you will all join me in the journey of reading Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick.